we're all good.
With that, that concludes Mr. Matz's direct testimony.
Okay. Eric, now do you want to ask your question?
No, it's answered.
It was answered. Anybody have Tom, Ron, any other questions? I just have, go ahead. Do you have any?
I believe either Mr. Horovitz, one of the other witnesses can testify to that. And Carl, I don't think would be the best person to answer that, but we can address that with other witnesses.
So I have two very quick questions. Sorry. Just in the initial part of his testimony, he testified to the, the project timeline. And so I was quite, but you're showing construction beginning March 2021, the air rig drilling August 2022, but horizontal drilling wouldn't begin until January 2025. I guess I'm just trying to understand why we're considering a well that's not going to be drilled for 5 years at this point. And then also, Mr. Max, during his previous testimony on the Samuel had mentioned that in hindsight, Augustine, because of the delayed time between when it was approved and when it was actually drilled, that there was significant development in the area. And while at this point we're not aware of significant development in that area, 5 years is a long time from now, especially considering the rushed nature of this hearing.
Carl, do you want to respond to that comment?
Sure. So our rig schedule tends to move a good bit, and that those dates are slightly. We have we're trying to line this thing up with construction completion of the turnpike for better access. So that is one of the things that affected the Schultz in particular. Would be the completion of the turnpike. So that's one of the reasons it's being pushed out. And then also when we bring Augustine online and we bring Samuel online, there's pipeline constraints to be able to move the amount of gas that comes from the individual well pads. So it's it does take a little bit of time for that full development to take place. So it does take, would be over a period of time.
Just seems like since there isn't a immediate need, I guess the whole this hearing tonight on this well pipe hearing, the drilling usually ends up happening until the earliest August 22, most likely 2025. But there's a lot that can change between that time frame.
There is, but also understand that this is a lengthy time period of processing and permitting, and a lot more stuff that will go into this. And so to keep continuing down the path we're continuing without knowing we can get a zoning to even do that work, we like to make sure that we do have, especially zoning, the actual right to be able to use the property in that way. That's kind of one of the first things we want to be able to make sure that we have checked off before we continue to invest and spend money in the project. So I guess I would just bring that up as well.
To be fair, you would like Samuel, which is showing drilling beginning January 2021, air rig August 2021, and drilling horizontal drilling May 2022. That's a more significantly closer time. I guess my point is I don't want to end up in the same situation that we ended up in Augustine, which is was applied for, delayed, and then there was a huge housing plan that was put in a very close location. And And then the other point is, you had mentioned during this testimony for the annual pad that you intend to transfer water, or would like approval to transfer water from Connor's Annual to Schultz Bernard. There's a significant difference in time, and then what happens with water, or how does that transfer occur? There's literally years between the developers.
I think that Mr. Welker can answer that question. So if you could just hold that thought and ask him that.
Okay. I again would just like to point out that we were somewhat rushed into the hearing, the application for the warning of an ordinance hearing, and now it's really been planned for 5 years. Just the map that I brought with the housing plan that you're showing around this, and obviously your map where you show Connor's Annual, Odyssey, and Schultz Bernard, it's so small. Is that the most up-to-date with housing plan? Because it was hard to tell, and it looks like something maybe missing.
As far as with regards to Schultz and development around Schultz?
Schultz, all of them in general.
I can't state that. I mean, this aerial imagery doesn't have Augustine being built here. This one has some of the development being under construction. Yeah, it's probably from 2018, I'm guessing 19 maybe. It's just the latest one that I was able to get have access to.
I would just maybe encourage you to, you were specifying Mr. Gregory as a cultural part of Cecil, in one point, maybe that made it very true. It is to some extent. There are, I believe in things missing on it. So you had talked in my last question about laterals. So just again, so I understand this is a question I asked during the conversation that I wasn't, I'm still not sure I fully understand. So the laterals run in one direction, and the pipeline would run in one direction.
Pipeline would run all over the place. There's no, the well bores will be in this direction. The pipeline, it's not, I'm not sure where it's coming from. But it would not be running in a straight line necessarily, but and be relative to the essence of the road.
So the laterals, so they are four wells, just as an example, they all run in the same direction. How far apart?
Typically about 750 feet.
Each well is 750 feet apart.
Not the surface location, obviously, but the downhole horizontal portion of it.
That's it for now.
Carl, just one follow-up on the chair's question. Maybe if you go to Exhibit 8, I think that's the one where you were referring to the aerial and the general development characteristics around the well pads. All right.
This is more up-to-date aerial, mostly from our GIS department. You can see development, and obviously that wasn't in my area of imagery, so this is fairly recent, about 19.
So, for example, it does show the Windsor Woods plan.
It does.
But again, it shows that there's no development in the vicinity of the Schultz proposed pad. Is that correct?
I have one very quick follow-up question. So will you or have you obtained the right-of-ways for the pipeline and the laterals already at this point?
There's going to be two different things you're talking about there. The pipeline right-of-way, I can't speak to. It will be by a third-party midstream company. They will secure those right-of-ways before they do any disturbance within that right-of-way. Now, the well bores, so the lease areas underneath the well bores, some of it's secured, some of it is not secured. You know, we will not drill underneath land that is not leased.
Okay, great, thank you.
Eric, you did this all night last night. If you have something to say,
We
please
have
take a turn to say it, otherwise.
Mr. Matt, I think the question at this point would be whether Mr. Moniger, who's the only other entity with party status, has any questions.
He has no questions at this point.
Okay. So we'd like to excuse Mr. Matt then now and move to our next witness. And at this point, we'd like to call Justin Welker. Mr. Welker, by whom are you employed?
Range Resources,
And what's your current position with Range?
the Water Operations Manager.
Okay. And you testified in more detail as to your employment history, both at Range, prior employers, and your educational background. Is that correct? During the Connor Samuel hearing?
Correct, yes.
Okay. So we will revisit that now. But is it fair to say in various capacities of Range that you're familiar with its general water operations in both Cecil Township and surrounding areas?
Yes,
And also you're familiar with the planning for water operations for Schultz and to the extent the Connor pads related to Schultz?
correct, yes.
Okay. Now, Mr. Welker did testify as to various stages of development and the general sources that Range obtains its water. If the chair would like, if Mr. Moniker is in agreement, we would just incorporate that testimony from Connor Samuel into this case.
I'm okay with that, Mr. Money.
Yes.
Everybody else? Yes, all in agreement.
So with that, Justin, let's focus specifically on what the water sourcing plans are for the Schultz pad. And Mr. Matz, if you could share the screen with Exhibit 8, which is the one we had up just a few moments ago. Justin, for the Schultz pad, will there be a division of water coming, a split of water sources, some being fresh water and some being what we call reused water?
Yes.
Okay, let's start with the reused water. What percentage of the water necessary for hydraulic fracturing would come from from reused water?
It would be about 40%.
And what is the truck route that, assuming, what is the current truck route anticipated for the trucks that will bring reused water to the Schultz Well pad?
It would be getting off of the turnpike, and I don't know that specific turnpike exit, but it would be getting off the turnpike and traveling on Rising Road,